And so we're going to start today. We have a great lineup of speakers who will join us and offer some remarks. And downstairs we'll have roundtable discussion as well, an opportunity for more discussion there. We'll have folks joining us virtually as well from many states up and down the Mississippi River. I don't have too much more to say to open this up. Just thank you everybody for coming. Really happy that we have a nice, beautiful day. Finally, it feels like spring has been lingering on and lingering on, so very, very welcome this warm weather, but wouldn't mind a couple degrees cooler if I were honest. So with that, I'd just like to welcome Dr. Ken Traska, President of Lewis and Clark Community College.
So, thank you. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for that introduction. So today is really about partnership, collaboration, and access. And as a president of a community college, that is really at the core of our mission, vision, and really the imperative of all of our work. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone again for being here. Dr. John Kim, our State Director of EPA, and all of our local leaders, mayors from across our region. Thank you for being here, and thank you for extending that support and that commitment to this great work. What all of you may or may not know is NGREC started as an idea with Dr. Gary Rolfe, who's here hiding right there in the really warm jacket, and Dr. Dale Chapman, our former president at Lewis and Clark. And I think the idea started about 22 years ago, knowing Gary probably on a napkin, and knowing Dale, it was on a napkin. And here we are 22 years later. NGREC has been around 20 years. And it has continued to grow and to celebrate the remarkable work of partnership along the Mississippi River and along rivers across the country. Particularly those communities that are underserved and have opportunities for better access to clean water, etc. So again, thank you for your commitment to this work. Let's look forward to another strong 20 years together. I think the world needs more and more collaboration, finding the silver lining in our work, and continuing to look at the common focus and goals that we have together to continue to make this region and our country a much stronger and beautiful place. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Gary, for your excellent work. I know many of your team members are here as well. Our environmental scientist and leadership team, just doing amazing work out in the field every day. So thank you. Keep doing great work. And again, it's wonderful to have you all here today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Mayor?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Alton, Illinois. My name is David Goins, and I am the mayor of Alton. And joining me today at the podium is Robert Eastern, mayor of East St. Louis, and the Mississippi River Towns Initiative Illinois State Chair. I want to especially acknowledge EPA Region 5 Administrator Deborah Shore, Illinois State Environmental Director John Kim, and Senior Advisor to the U.S. EPA Administrator Zeeland Hoover for joining us. I also want to thank the U.S. EPA for reaching out to the communities along the Mississippi River through the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative to better implement and broaden the reach of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. We couldn't agree more with the EPA's effort to focus on the Mississippi River corridor, as 50 cities and 20 million people drink the surface water of the Mississippi River every day, including me and most of my mayoral colleagues, plus all family and friends. Where our cities draw over 900 million gallons of surface water from the river daily for drinking, we pull over 8 million gallons per day for manufacturing. The freshwater economy of the Mississippi River Valley is primarily comprised of manufacturing, tourism, agriculture economies generating $458 billion in annual revenue, directly supporting 1.3 million jobs. So it becomes quite clear how freshwater resources like the Mississippi River and the tremendous economic and ecological corridor the river sustains would be a natural choice. A choice to best demonstrate rollout of new opportunities from the Jobs Act concerning the state revolving loan program for clean water and drinking water. Further, the cities of the Mississippi Rivers Towns and Initiative represent a diverse cohort of interests and priorities contained in the Jobs Act. Our communities represent dense urban centers along with spread out rural areas and everyone in between. A hallmark of the Jobs Act is to access the benefit areas of the U.S. typically overlooked by larger funding vehicles, from which points to where the need is greatest for renewed water infrastructure. For more on that, please welcome my friend and neighbor, Mayor Robert Eastern of East St. Louis, Illinois.
Good morning and thank you. Mayor Goins, as the mayor stated, I stand before you representing not only my city, but also the state Illinois State Chair of Mississippi's Rivers and Cities and Towns Initiative. The Mississippi River includes EPA regions, creating the need for a bit of cooperation and collaboration across the EPA family. We actually think it's a good thing and affords us the opportunity for our cities to work with the EPA and an integrated level of transverse boundaries and larger multiple state scales involving multiple levels of government, state, federal, and local. I want to recognize Mayor Mike Monroe of Grafton, Illinois, who has also joined us today. Mayor Goins mentioning the need of the diverse challenges of our region. The drinking water infrastructure for our 10th state corridor has about $49 billion, along with the wastewater backing $42 billion, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers. Mayor Goins, compounding this need is that's hot. I need to take my glasses off. I'm sweating. Compounding this need is the fact that the corridors that sustained us over 210 billion and disaster losers 205 since 2005. The flood of 2019 cost the Mississippi River Valley over $6 billion alone. There was all points in the facts of the community's repetitive losses due to persistent record-breaking events that have urgent need for infrastructure resources. We applaud the EPA for selecting the Mississippi Valley to intensify research. Communities with the most need in the Jobs Act prioritize for along the communities that least ability to meet the costs and share requirements pay back loans. Thus, the forgiveness provisions afford the state revolving loan program through the Jobs Act. It will have further reaching positive impact and perhaps other point of the SRF 30-year history. My city is in great need of infrastructure and the fresh water and this, that, and the other for my city and the region. We're rebuilding the city. We're trying to make our city the all-American city what it once was. And with fresh water and those things and partnering with the EPA, which definitely set us apart from the rest of the region and make a collaborative effort. So we're definitely excited about that. We look forward to working with the EPA and our states to implement a new level of water infrastructure restoration and more targeted communities across the need to assist the state's efforts to remove program barriers and the 5-year investment opportunity loans. Thank you.
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here today. Through the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Biden administration is going to be investing over $75 billion in the Mississippi River corridor over the next 5 years. This is an unprecedented investment. It's to be brought by both EPA and all of our partners across the federal government. And these investments are going to close long-standing infrastructure gaps: water infrastructure, transportation, power, environmental cleanup, resiliency. And at EPA, we're going to be driving forward progress on 3 of those areas, specifically water infrastructure, everything from upstream of the tap and downstream of the drain. We're going to be focusing on environmental cleanups. We're going to be focusing on low and zero carbon buses, both electric school buses and low carbon fuel school buses. My colleague Deborah Shore is going to speak in a moment about some of the exciting investments you can expect from EPA in the year ahead. I want to take a moment to talk about the direction that the President has given all of us across the federal government in how we are implementing these programs. First, the President's been very clear that we need to move fast. These needs have been long-standing. Your communities need to replace the lead pipes now. You need funding for water infrastructure now. And so what you can expect from the federal government is that every week, the President, Vice President, EPA Administrator Michael Regan, colleagues across the cabinet are going to be across the country, and they're going to be highlighting the progress that we are making. Now, not every program is going to get dollars out the door in a day, but collectively across the hundreds of programs in the infrastructure bill, you're going to see progress every week as we move this forward, and we do everything we can to be good partners to your communities up and down the river. Second, the President's been really clear that we need to create good paying union jobs. We are both in the strongest job market in American history, with over 8.3 million jobs created since the President took office. And yet at the same time, there are too many Americans on the sidelines. And so looking just at the water infrastructure alone, these are good paying jobs for HVAC technicians, plumbers, heavy equipment operators, pipe fitters. And so we are going to be focusing in the program design to make sure that we're not just getting money out the door, but creating this structures for good paying jobs to reach folks who will really benefit from that work. Third, we need to fight climate change. These investments are a core part of the administration's climate strategy, both reducing carbon emissions and strengthening climate resiliency. You heard the mayor talk about the damage of the floods here on the Mississippi River, both through the water investments at EPA and some of the investments that our peer agencies like FEMA are making. We're going to be able to do a lot more to strengthen the resiliency of our communities against the impacts of climate change. Fourth, we need to give every community a fighting chance. We have these long-standing gaps in our infrastructure, and they are not distributed fairly or evenly across the country. There are too many communities that have borne a disproportionate impact from unhealthy water, environmental contamination, air pollution, and so we're going to be working closely with states, with local elected officials, with the mayors here today to make sure that we are pushing this funding out to the communities that need it the most. And I'm really looking forward to the conversations today with the mayors and state officials who are here to take your feedback on how we can do that most effectively, how we can be a good partner. And lastly, the President's been very clear that we need to bring robust oversight to taxpayer dollars, that accountability goes hand in hand with impact. And so we are committed to and very confident that we will administer these programs in ways that maintain the public's trust in EPA and in the federal government. So we at EPA really appreciate this opportunity that we have. Administrator Michael Regan is thrilled to be in a position to support these long-standing needs and is given us his full and unconditional support to be successful in implementation, as has the President, and you'll hear more now from Deb Shore about everything that we're doing in Region 5 and across the Midwest in the Mississippi River Corridor.
Thank you, Zealand, and thanks to all of you for being here today. The President has said since day one that when we come together, we can achieve big things. And thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, we can achieve big things for towns and cities here along the Mississippi River. We know that investing in water infrastructure is one of the best investments we can make, not only to protect public health and the environment, but to stimulate local job creation while laying a strong foundation for economic vitality. The infrastructure law provides more than $50 billion to revitalize our country's drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems, changes that will effectively uplift communities like those along the Mississippi. A significant portion of this funding will flow through EPA's State Revolving Fund program, which is a federal-state partnership that provides communities low-cost financing for a wide range of infrastructure projects. The 10 states of the Mississippi River Corridor will receive a total of nearly $1 billion of this funding for 2022 alone. That's this year, which is expected to create more than 20,000 jobs, with more to come over the next 5 years. When we talk about building a better America, this is what we mean. EPA has called on states to remove policy barriers and prioritize distributing grant funds to disadvantaged communities that have historically had a difficult time accessing federal investments. We're delivering on this expectation by connecting communities in forums such as our roundtable today, where we're bringing federal, state, and local community leaders together to discuss how we can work together to implement technical assistance and increase access to these funds. We're starting with communities along one of our nation's environmental treasures and powerful economic engines, the Mississippi River. This is an important time in our history, and communities like yours are leading the charge. Now I'll turn it over to Illinois EPA Director John Kim.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you all very much for allowing us the opportunity to appear before you today in this very important event. And I'd like to extend a special thanks to the Center for this location and hosting us. I honestly cannot imagine a better location to have the conversation that we're having today, other than literally on the banks of the Mississippi River, a water body that is so important to the state of Illinois and to all the states that it touches. On behalf of the Illinois EPA, I would like to again express our appreciation for the chance to take up the role as the state's administrator of the State Revolving Fund program in Illinois. We see every day the importance of that program, and we embrace our role as the administrator. That program allows us to have a direct impact on communities in Illinois, ranging from the city of Chicago down to communities such as Alton and East St. Louis. And it's important because what it's doing is just bringing resources that might not otherwise be available to communities like that to help them address these very important infrastructure needs. And these are needs that benefit not only the community in specific and their residents, but also have a direct impact and a very important impact on the environment, which goes right to the core of our mission. One good example of how this program can have such an impact on communities and from a number of different standpoints is a recent loan that we had an event over. I was able to have the privilege of attending a groundbreaking there. And what it involved was the extension of a sewer line from an existing wastewater district to a community college and to a small village that on their own had their own systems, but each of those systems were in great need of repair. The cost of that extension, which we were able to provide funding for, is less than half of the cost that it would have been for that community college and for that village to try and undertake their own repairs, much less the ongoing maintenance. And so what that allows us to happen is that district is allowed to expand their service area, which helps them to offset some of the costs associated with that extension. It allows the community college to set aside funds that would otherwise go to the capital needs, and they can continue to develop their programs, and then allows the village to take two things. One, it can tell their residents that now they are bringing much more robust and much more strong wastewater infrastructure to the community, and it also allows them to take funding that they would have otherwise needed and to redirect that into business development, residential development. So it's clearly a win-win scenario for everybody, and that's a good example of how this kind of loan program has a direct impact on communities. And from an environmental perspective, what that project allows us to do is take off 2 points of discharges to the Kishwaukee River, and that allows us to, again, make sure that we are taking very important steps to protecting the environment. One important impact or aspect of the bipartisan infrastructure law that is going to be extremely significant to all states, including Illinois, is the component related to lead service line replacement. That's something that all states in the country, and certainly here in Illinois, we recognize that that's something that is crucial and needs to be addressed. We believe in Illinois, we have one of the highest, if not perhaps the highest need for lead service line replacement. And so this funding is going to go a very long way to help us to try and address that kind of concern. What we are also trying to do at the state level is we want to extend and we want to make the most efficient and effective use of that funding. So we're trying to come up with programs through state funding that will help parties gain access to that funding so that we can allow them to use the bipartisan infrastructure law funding related to lead service line replacement in a more effective way. And for example, what we're trying to do is have as much maximization of the principal forgiveness component of that funding. What we have seen is that that is a very important incentive and motivation for communities to take part in the program. In Illinois, we have a law that calls for a required inventory and replacement schedule for lead service lines. And so what this kind of funding is going to do is it's going to allow us to work with communities closely, and it's going to allow them to complete their inventory requirements, to address their replacement needs according to the statutory structure that we've got. And again, the direct benefit there we're going to see is to those residents and the people that are living in those communities, and they're going to see the firsthand benefits of this kind of funding. So in closing, I'm going to keep my comments very short because I think everyone else has done a great job of discussing the importance of this funding. But I want to say that, again, on behalf of Illinois, and the Illinois EPA in particular, we are very grateful for this once-in-a-generational impact of additional funding that's going to be coming our way. We know it's going to have a direct impact on communities and on residents in the state. And we look forward, through our close partnership with US EPA and our very good relationships with Region 5, to implementing that program and to continuing to extend benefits to the environment and to the people of the state. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Kim. And I'd also like to thank Mayor Goins, Mayor Eastern, Mr. Zeeland, Ms. Shore as well for their remarks. A couple programming notes for us today. From about the next 15 minutes, we'll have stepped aside for media availability for any of the media that would like to speak with any of our speakers here today. And then at 10 a.m., we'll have our keynote session downstairs in the Riverview room. It's a little bit of a walk, so we have a little bit of time scheduled in between. So we'll see everyone down there at 10 a.m. for the start of that. But for right now, for about the next 15 minutes or so, we'll have a media availability for the media who are here. So with that, thank you, and we'll see you guys downstairs.